Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, before you go, if you haven't liked and shared our social media pages,
hello
please
everyone,
do that
I'm
and
Bill
help this
Allen, the
movement
producer
grow.
of Loren Live.
We also
VMG.
have an online
We're
store
glad
where
you're
you can
joining us
purchase
today.
Culp apparel to
Loren's
help
coming to
support
you
the
live
campaign.
on several streaming
If you want a
platforms
yard
like
sign
Facebook,
or even a larger
YouTube,
yard sign.
and Twitter.
Lastly, we
followed
have a
by a
large
live
financial
question
nut
and
to crack
answer
when we need
session
your support.
afterwards.
We have
Love,
a secure
comment,
donor
share, and
portal that
tag
keeps
all of
your
your friends
financial
and get ready to
information
hear
secure.
from the
You
next
can give up to
governor of
$2,000
Washington
per
State.
person through that portal. We need some of our larger donors to step up and to help us open up the second quarter strong. Loren, thank you so much for being here with us on Loren Live. I just have to say, on behalf of your staff here, it truly is an honor to work with you on this campaign, and we're excited to see you win the primary in August, and to go on and be victorious in November. I'm Bill Allen, and this has been my pleasure hosting this event. Please join us this coming week in the future Loren Live VMG events. Until then, thanks for watching.
Okay, cool. Is it, are we live now on? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you go, if you haven't liked and shared our social media pages,
Hello
please
everyone,
do that
I'm
and
Bill
help this
Allen, the
movement
producer
grow.
of Loren Live.
We also have an
VMG.
online
We're
store
glad
where
you're
you
joining
can
us
purchase
today.
Culp apparel to help
Loren's
support
coming to
the
you live
campaign.
on several streaming
If you want a
platforms
yard
like
sign
Facebook,
or even a larger
YouTube,
yard sign.
and Twitter.
Lastly, we
followed
have a
by a
large
live
financial nut
question
to
and
crack
answer
when we need
session
your
afterwards.
support. We
Love,
have a secure
comment,
donor
share, and
portal that
tag
keeps
all of
your
your friends
financial
and get ready
information
to hear
secure.
from the
You
next
can give up to
governor of
$2,000
Washington
per
State.
person through that portal. We need some of our larger donors to step up and to help us open up the second quarter strong. Loren, thank you so much for being here with us on Loren Live. I just have to say, on behalf of your staff here, it truly is an honor to work with you on this campaign, and we're excited to see you win the primary in August, and to go on and be victorious in November. I'm Bill Allen, and this has been my pleasure hosting this event. Please join us this coming week in the future Loren Live VMG events. Until then, thanks for watching. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Bill Allen, your host for today's broadcast. Loren is going to tell us a little about himself and how he is going to bring common sense to Washington. Before we begin, I want to share with you that the Culp campaign has taken our busy schedule exclusively online through social media. In these broadcasts each week, Loren will be focusing on unique issues facing different regions of the state.
Hey, Bill. Hi, everybody. Good to see y'all. It's going great. We had actually some snow on the ground this morning, about a half an inch, believe it or not. It completely covered the ground.
Oh, right on. That's cool. Hey, hey, Loren, I wanted to let you know that I've had a lot of engagement on. I've been noticing a lot of engagement on the Facebook page, and we're definitely going to be recognizing some of the top badge earners and the page later in this live, as well as taking questions from the audience. So some of our viewers may not have heard your story. Can you tell us a little more?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Q&A afterwards. So hopefully people stick around. But yeah, some people have heard my story where I grew up and how I became a chief of police. But I've been a lifelong resident of Washington State. I've lived in this state my whole life, except for 4 years in the military. And I went to school in a small farming community called Chimacum, which is right outside of Port Townsend. My dad was a deputy sheriff. My mom worked at the post office there. And I went to grade school, junior high, and freshman year of high school in Chimacum. And then my parents moved us across the state to the northeastern corner in a small city called Republic. And small town up in the mountains. And that's where I went to high school at. I met my high school sweetheart, Barb, there. We've been married for 42 years this year, believe it or not. And she deserves all the credit for that, for putting up with me for 42 years. Can you imagine? But after the school, we decided that we would take a little bit of an adventure. And I joined the U.S. Army. And I served in the 101st Airborne Division and the 2nd Infantry Division. I went through drill sergeant school at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where I helped to turn civilians into soldiers. Spent some time doing that. I was, like I said, a sergeant in the Army. Got some leadership experience there. And after the Army, Barb and I moved to the Olympia area. And I worked in construction with my dad and other people for a few years. And then in 1988, I got out of the military in 1984. 1988, I started my own construction business. And I started that business with a 1976 Datsun pickup truck that I bought from my grandpa for $600 on payments because I was broke. And started doing concrete foundations and concrete driveways and framing houses all around the Olympia area. I built that company up. I ran it for a little over 20 years. Built that company up from that little truck and one employee to multiple employees, multiple trucks, and we were doing jobs all around Puget Sound for over 20 years. And I know what it's like to be a small business owner, right? I know that about the taxes and the regulations and the hassle that it takes, to make payroll, to pay your taxes, pay the fees, go through the permitting process for jobs. I've got that experience definitely. But as I was growing up, my dad was a cop. Like I said, he was a deputy sheriff in Jefferson County, or maybe I didn't even say that, but he was a deputy sheriff. And once in a while, he'd take me out on police calls, wake me up in the middle of the night, and I'd go with him in the patrol car to an accident or something. And I always thought, that was my childhood dream, right, to be a police officer. And after running our own business for over 20 years in the Olympia area, um, Barb and I kind of missed small town living and home, Republic. Barb grew up here her whole life. And a job opening came open here for a police officer. So I applied for that job and I got accepted. And at 49 years old, believe it or not, I went through the police academy over in Burien. Most of the people in my class were in their 20s and 30s, and a few of them called me grandpa for good reason because I was old, right? And so I made it to that and became a police officer in the city of Republic. And I was a patrol officer at first, and then a narcotics detective for over 3 years. I was the sergeant of the department, and then I was promoted to chief of police. And I've been the chief of police here for about, oh, I think going on 3.5 years now. I've been the chief of police in the Republic.
Right on. Hey, you know, I've got family that's been in law enforcement as well, and they had we had talked a lot about the homeless problems, and it's not just in Seattle. I mean, it's Ellensburg. And I saw your story about John, and I'd like to hear. I'd love to see you share your story. You don't have to go too deep into it, but just your approach to homelessness.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I have never thought, you hear about on the news all the time, the homeless crisis in Seattle, the homeless crisis in Tacoma and Olympia, and it's spread all over the state, right? And you hear politicians and people on the news talking about how we need to take millions and millions of taxpayer dollars and build homes for these people and get them off the street, right? That's been the narrative, right? And even from some of my Republican competitors for governor, in their announcement speeches said the same thing. But I called it like I saw it, from being a police officer and being a narcotics detective for over 3 years. It's not about homes, for most of these people, the crime and the drugs. It's about addiction and mental health. And I called it that way on my announcement speech way back in July last year. So until we address the root problem with that, it's not going to get fixed. They're going to keep throwing millions and millions of dollars at that problem.
Yeah, yeah, and you just hit the nail on the head right there. Like Seattle, I read somewhere, I was just floored about how much money they spend on homelessness, and it's just getting out of control. I used to work in downtown Seattle, and it looks nothing like what it does today. I was just floored at the amount of money, and
Oh,
that's our
yep.
money.
It is our money that is taking from hardworking families, and they're, like you said, they're throwing millions and millions of dollars at that problem, but they're not addressing the core issue. And until they address the core issue, it's not going to get fixed. I toured a treatment facility in southwestern Washington not too long ago, probably a couple months ago. I toured it and saw what they were doing down there because they're having success, right? And they are mostly funded by private businesses in the community and private individual donors because they are having such high success down there and they're actually addressing the problem. But they, unlike most of the facilities that are state run or state funded, they have a different set of rules, and the people have to follow those rules. And that means going to your mental health counselor, going to your drug counselor, and they have a locked facility. They have guards and they have cameras, and people live there that used to live off the street, but they're treating the core problem. And if they don't abide by the rules, if they don't follow the program, then they're booted out. And there's been a few that got booted out but then came begging to get back in, and they said they'd follow the rules, and they have turned out a lot of success. They're having 78% success rate in this facility out in Southwest Washington. And if you go to the facilities that are state run or mostly state funded, you will not even get an answer when you ask them what their success rate is, most likely because it's so low. The state requires a zero threshold entry for these facilities. Um, and people can come and go as they want. They can bring drugs in. Nobody searches anything. But this private facility is what I want to bring all across the state to address that core issue. And it'll do multiple things. It will get people off the street, obviously, and get them out of the cycle of addiction, because the politicians that are pushing for this type of state-run program, they think that it's not compassionate to lock somebody up, to put them in jail. You arrest somebody for a drug offense, that's not showing them compassion, is what they say, right? But residue in a baggie in this state of heroin or meth is a felony, right? And what we have over here, what we've been doing for years, is a zero tolerance policy. If someone gets picked up for narcotics crimes or another crime and we end up with narcotics charges, they're given the option of going to treatment or going to jail or prison, depending on the severity of their crime. And most of them choose treatment. And I've had several people come back, and the one that you just mentioned, John, he was on a show with me with Brandy Cruz on a show called The Divide. It's on Q13 Fox on the West Side. And she interviewed me and interviewed John, and he told her what he went through. And I arrested him for dealing, and he was a user that was dealing, to support his habit. And I arrested him, and he hated my guts in the beginning. He hated me because I ruined his life at that time, right? But after he got clean, he got his kids back. He got married. He got a job. He just recently bought a house, and he's a productive member of our community now, like so many others. But that's what it takes. It takes that tough love, a boot in the butt, and that to me is compassion. Leaving them on the street in a cycle of addiction, it's absolutely the opposite of compassion. And that's what the far liberal left agenda is. And that's what they want to do. And it's horrible.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think that, the soft treatment approach, it's obviously failing, or just leaving them to their own devices. I noticed too, I was going through Facebook a lot, and a lot of people are worried about their jobs, and, based on what's going on with this outbreak, and, and I've heard you talk about deregulation in this state, how that's going to help businesses. That's going to be so important for the recovery of this state. Could you go into some of the ideas you have about regulation and deregulation?
Absolutely. Yeah. As a 20+ year business owner, before I became a police officer, I know what regulations and taxes do to small businesses and families. That's money out of their pocket that's going to the state, and the state decides where they're going to spend it. And most oftentimes it's spent on stupid things like trying to build hundreds or thousands of housing units, for the so-called homeless crisis, like I just talked to. But day one as governor, I don't need legislative action to get rid of a lot of regulations. When is the last time anyone heard of taxes and regulations getting lowered in this state, right? It never. There's been 35 years of Democrat control of our state government, and taxes and regulations go up and up and up every year. They'd never cut them back. And what I will do on day one, like I said, I don't need legislative action. I will start cutting regulations in every department where they're necessary to be cut. And there's a lot of them. And then also with the budget, every budget cycle, we just go off of what was spent in the last budget cycle and add a percentage to that. And that's pretty much how the state budget is currently over $53 billion a year. 53 billion, that's huge. But what I'm going to propose is we go to a zero-based budget where every department has to justify what they need the money for, and not just tack on another 10% to what they spent last year. Because what happens is at the end of the fiscal year or into the budget cycle, if there's money left over, these agencies go on a spending spree because they have the mentality that if we don't spend it, we're not going to get it next year with the increase. So I'm going to push for a zero-based budget where every department head has to justify what they need the taxpayers' funds for. And we can cut a lot of waste out. right in the beginning doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They're wasting so much tax money. It's ridiculous. And then you just keep the gas tax in this state is just it's every week it's going up. I'm taken back. I don't know what it's crazy, but
Right. And how is our transportation system in this state, right?
it
How
just
are the
gets getting
roads?
worse.
Yes. Yeah, I'm traveling this state a lot. I mean, a lot. Well, before this virus hit, but now I'm traveling over the internet, right? But I put a lot of miles on the car, and I'm seeing roads all over the state. I've been to every corner, and there are so many state highways that are one lane each direction and have been since I was a child. Since I was a kid, these roads are one lane. And where are all the tax monies going for transportation? They're definitely not going into improving these roads and making them so that they can handle more traffic, right? And the highways, the state highways, are the lifeblood for businesses, for families traveling. And some of these roads are very heavily traveled, especially in the summertime. You get trucks and campers, families out enjoying our outdoor activities, and you can't hardly get anywhere, let alone right through Puget Sound, right? But it's a problem all over the state.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk too. That was kind of interesting. I haven't really looked into it too much, but you were talking about like down in Texas and Florida, maybe, where they've got these where the state works with private contractors.
Yeah, public and private partnerships.
Yeah,
That's something that, yeah, Texas and Florida have used that, and it takes some of the burden off the taxpayers when the state works with private industry.
right on. Well, I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to be a little bit self-serving. I know we got questions, but I'm a big time. I love hunting and I love fishing. And the states, the WDFW and the feds and what's going on in the state, I've never seen it this bad. Um, we need somebody with some strong leadership and to put the right people in place in Olympia and the WDFW. We got to get this turned around, or it's not going to be able to be turned around.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a lifelong hunter and fisherman since I was a little kid. And the problem is that we have people that we have put in place in our government that don't make it a priority. This state used to be a destination state for hunters and fishermen. The salmon fishing used to be spectacular in Puget Sound and out around the peninsula and in our rivers, and it's not anymore. And that's because it's not been a priority. There's three things that need to be fixed in that, and that's hatchery output. Our hatcheries should be running full bore, and the predators. I was talking to the chief of one of the tribes the other day, and he said that they have historically hunted sea lions and seals. And if you go out to the mouths of some of these rivers and in our ports and harbors, and even up into the rivers, there's sea lions and seals everywhere. And if they're not controlled, I mean, they eat a lot of salmon. You know, they have to be controlled just like any other predator out there, including land animals, cougars, wolves. We can't just let the predators overpopulate and decimate the population of our fish and wildlife. That can't happen. And then we need to work on habitat as well,
Yeah.
and bring these fisheries back.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
one other thing I wanted to mention. I was out at Westport not too long ago and talking to some folks out there, and just to give you an example of how big of an industry that the charter fishing industry was in this state when we had salmon, there used to be over 300 charter boats that worked out of Westport alone, not to mention all the other ports around the state, but 300, right? And now there's about 28 charter boats because the fisheries has died off, because our state doesn't make it a priority, and I will definitely make it a priority. This state needs to be a destination state again, like it used to be,
Yeah.
because those people coming here, they're not only getting enjoyment for them and their family and getting some food, they're spending money on gas, on hotels, on food, on equipment, and that's a whole industry that we have lost, and we need to bring it back.
Absolutely. I've been in contact with, they've got some interesting stuff going up north of us, up in British Columbia. The First Nations are now culling pinnipeds. and they're using what they harvest to sell and to help support the tribe up there too. So it's just getting kicked off. It's going to be interesting to see. Excuse me. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the next couple of years.
Definitely.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm on Facebook right now, and it is absolutely blowing up right now with people in the chat room. Maybe we could, people in the chat room, maybe start sending out some questions for Loren.
Yeah, type in some questions and I would be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, I'll start scrolling through right now and see if we can find some good stuff.
Okay, and while you're doing that, I can let everybody know how things are going on social media. We have almost, well, probably over three times, I think, as many Facebook followers as any of the other Republican candidates for governor. You guys are just killing it out there with sharing our page. It's totally awesome. I appreciate it. And that's how we're getting the word out. We haven't spent a dime on advertising yet. It's going to take a lot here pretty quick, though. Once we get closer to the election, we're going to be needing to do TV ads and radio ads and things like that. But you guys are absolutely killing it as far as getting the word out about this campaign. Not spending a dime and having 3 or 4 times more people on our page is incredible.
Excellent. I got a question that came up earlier in here, and I mean, what's Loren Culp famous for? Let's talk about the Second Amendment. What's been going on in the state in regards to gun control?
Right.
I think a lot of people don't kind of realize, you can't just jump in and, oh, I'm going to repeal this law. If it's done by executive order, then we got a route we can take. But if it's legislative, then we have to do it through a vote.
Exactly. Yeah. The governor, no matter how hard Jay Inslee tries to be a dictator, the governor is not a dictator and never should be. If a law is passed, then it's going to be up to the legislature to get it repealed or the courts. And then if it's repealed by the legislature, then the governor needs to sign it. And if the legislature, if enough people can wake their friends up and get them out to vote, get them registered to vote, get them out to vote, we can flip the legislature of this state. It can be done. There are more conservatives in this state than there are far left liberals. I know that for a fact. The problem is conservatives have kind of given up a little bit. 30-40% turnout is not going to get it done. But if everyone will get motivated, and there is a clear choice this year, if everyone will get their friends motivated, make sure everyone is registered to vote that and everybody turns out and votes, we will win by such a margin that there will not be a recount that King County can steal. That's what awesome. It's going to take.
Yeah. If you don't go out and vote, it's just like voting for a Democrat. We need everybody at the poll. Turn in your absentee ballot. Do everything you can to make your vote count.
And the funny thing about that, Bill, you mentioned Democrats. It's the far left Democrats that I'm probably never going to reach, right? But I'm hearing from a lot of middle of the road Democrats, and they are sick and tired of what's going on of the far left agenda. They're seeing what I stand for, and individual freedom and liberty. It resonates with a lot of people, and I'm hearing from Democrats saying that they're voting for a Republican for the first time in their life. They're going to cast their vote for me, and that's incredible. We need those people. They are good people. We might disagree on some social issues, but when it comes to individual freedom and liberty, it's popular. It's amazing, right?
Absolutely. That was kind of one of the things that drew me to you. I get the sense of feeling that you're going to bring common sense to Washington. You're not going to bring, necessarily a hard stance, right? And that you'll work with the left and try and come to a common sense solution. And I really like that about you.
Well, I will work with anybody. I do in my job now. I work with all kinds of people, all races, creeds, colors, all religions, all political backgrounds. There's some things that I will not bend on, though, and I make this promise to everyone everywhere I go and speak. And there's 3 things that I will put up as tests for any bill that the legislature puts on my desk for a signature. And number one, is it constitutional? If a bill's coming across my desk and it doesn't fit within the framework of the Constitution, because that is the rule book for our government, right? That tells the government what it can and cannot do. And if the bill is not constitutional, I will not sign it. Number two, is it good for the citizens of Washington State? Because the government works for us. We do not work for the government. So if a proposed bill is not good for the citizens, then I will not sign it. And number three, can we afford it without any new taxes? And if it doesn't pass any of those three tests, then I will veto that bill.
Outstanding. I'm going to go back to the chat room for another question, and this is one I've been wondering for a long time because I heard this mentioned when I first started following you, but I haven't seen it much in the last few months. And that is it possible to get an electoral college in the state of Washington?
It is possible. Yes, it would take the legislature to do it. And that's why everybody needs to get out and vote and make sure their friends are registered to vote. Because, there's a push to get rid of the electoral college on the national scale, right? But that's what gives everybody a voice. That's what makes a republic and not a democracy, right? We are a constitutional republic, and everyone has to have a voice, right? It's not about the popular vote,
Yeah,
but that's
and
what it would take.
yeah, and I couldn't agree more. When I started following you, um, I saw your book, American Cop, and instantly I just, I had to pick that up and I went through it. Wow, what a textbook. It is amazing. If you haven't read Loren's book, you got to pick it up. I mean, for those who are really into civics, it's could be a refresher, but for me, it was like eye opening. It's amazing how much we forget.
Yeah, we forget or we're not taught, right? So that's kind of, I mean, writing American Cop was kind of an accident. It just happened. It wasn't planned. Up until December of 2018, I had no ambition to write a book or run for office. It's what led to me being here right now.
That's excellent. Okay, I'm going to go back to the boards here. We already talked about homelessness. We talked about 1639. I was just trying to think of some of the other important questions. That man, it's just amazing the explosion of Facebook group. Where are we at now? Like 11,000 people right now.
Yeah, it's over 11,000. Yeah,
Wow,
it's
that's just
crazy.
amazing. And the people on there, there's so many good people on there, and so many small business owners.
Right.
Um, which kind of leads into a question. It's like, what are we going to do for these business owners when this pandemic kind of the fog lifts off this? That's
Well,
probably going to be around the November timeframe, maybe.
well, it better not be, or our economy and families, everybody's going to go broke. So I've been asked a lot, um, and I'm sure there's probably some on maybe on Facebook asking about this pandemic, this virus. And I was asked about it earlier today, and what I would do if I was governor right now. And here it is. I would not be a dictator like Jay Inslee is trying to be. I wouldn't pick winners and losers when it comes to business. You know, he's shut down certain stores, but not all stores. He's shut down private construction jobs, but not government jobs. And he's picking winners and losers. So what I would do first of all is have the medical professionals with me during a press conference so that we can get the facts out to the public. Tell them what's going on. Tell them what they should do in order to keep themselves and their families safe, and then suggest strongly if it's a very serious virus like they're saying that it is, and people are dying, and that's sad. then I would tell people that they should stay home if that's what the medical professionals tell me that should be done. I wouldn't order them to stay home. That's a dictator. That's violating people's constitutional rights. And the government doesn't have the authority to violate our constitutional rights. That's the rule book for the government. So I would suggest to people what they do. And it needs, I would tell them this needs to be done. This is what the medical professionals are saying. If we stay home, then this will be over with quickly. But I wouldn't pick and choose which businesses are going to survive and which ones are going to close, which ones are going to stay open. And it's all about social distancing, right? That's what they call it. But I went over to Walmart just last week, and there were at least 100 people in Walmart. But I can't go to my local cafe where there might be 3 to 5 people and sit down and have a meal. But I can go over to Walmart and walk around with 100 people. That makes absolutely no sense. And that's what happens when you have a person who thinks they're a dictator in office. And I would not do that. The American people, the Washingtonians, have freedom and liberty, and they can make the choice of what they need to do. If a private construction job has 3 or 4 people they're working on it, then why can't that continue on? Why is that shut down? But I can go into Walmart with 100 other people. It makes absolutely no sense, and that's what happens when you put idiots in office and they run things. Jay Inslee hasn't built anything in his life. He hasn't run his own business. He doesn't know what kind of struggle people are going through. I do. And one other thing, I'm getting on a little bit of a rant here, but this social distancing crap, it needs to stop. Everybody listening to this, we need to stop this social distancing BS. Physical distancing, yes. Okay, that's what the medical professionals are saying. Stay 6 feet away from people. That's physical distance between you and another person. But socially, we need to be closer than ever. We need to be contacting our friends, talking to our family, making sure everybody's okay. We have FaceTime on Facebook. You can see someone and talk to them at the same time. You don't have to be close to them physically. But socially, we need to be closer than ever, reassuring our friends and our family that we are going to get through this. We've gotten through how many other epidemics, right? The swine flu, the bird flu, name it. They come and go. We make it through. But we need to be socially close and physically distant.
Yeah, that's a great point, Loren. So I had another question too coming out of there.
Okay.
It's from Joe on Facebook. He's asking about your policy on sanctuary cities and law enforcement and ICE.
Law enforcement and ICE in sanctuary cities. Jay Inslee loves one of those things. Sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. And Jay Inslee signed it into law in, I believe it was last June, May, June, maybe in there, that Washington State is a sanctuary state. And so what that law does is if your local jail, your local police, your local sheriff have a criminal, they not only committed a crime by getting into this country, but they committed a crime in your community and they're in your local jail. Your local law enforcement cannot tell the federal government that this person is about to be released from jail on bail or on their own recognizance and coming back into your community. So it's a public safety problem, right? You have a criminal in your jail about to be released, and your local law enforcement cannot tell the federal government that, hey, this criminal is about to be released on the population of my community, and they're in this country illegally. What world do we live in, right? That's like Planet of the Apes. Those people that commit crimes in our communities and are about to be released, we need to tell the federal government that they are here and they need deported, period.
Yeah. I think, was it Kittitas? We lost a deputy to the same situation, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
That's
very tragic.
Horrible. I got another question. It's from Brendan in Facebook's comment section. And he's asking, what's the stance on the proposed pay per mile tax?
All right, Brandon, what's my stance on the pay per mile? I think that that's absolute hogwash. People in rural areas would end up paying more than people living in the cities, right? If you're only a few blocks or a couple miles away from your job, then you would pay less than somebody who has to travel 20 minutes or an hour to their job. I mean, right where I live right now, it's an hour to a Walmart, either direction. I could go east or west. It's an hour to Walmart. So just doing shopping, monthly shopping, I would put more miles on somebody that lives in the city. I don't believe in more taxes. I don't believe that we need anything like that. And how would they keep track of it, right? Would they put a tracker in our car? That's a violation of our constitutional rights, and I'm totally against it.
Yeah. And there's another aspect to this too, is that, if you're like a real estate developer, rich, millions of dollars, right? What's 50 more cents, right? But, if you're, you dig ditches or whatever, and you're making 12, 15 bucks an hour, it's much bigger effect on your budget than a rich person. You know what I mean? It seems like kind of like class warfare.
Yeah, taxes hurt the middle class and the poor, and we need to have less taxes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, I think we could probably cut it short. Lauren's going to be back in the comment section here in a little bit, and he can answer more questions back there. Hey,
All
Lauren.
right, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks a lot for doing the live with us and talking to the people. And
Absolutely.
we're going to keep them coming every week.
Everybody go to our Facebook page and share, and make sure to share our website too. We need donations to make this happen. Everybody chipping in whatever you can afford, whether it's $5 or $500. It will all add up. And I appreciate the support. It's been tremendous. We'll
All right.
talk to everyone in about a week or so.
All right. Thanks, Lauren.
All right. Take care.